G'day! I know it's been a while, but lately I've been doing a massive Avatar Last Airbender franchise binge, and I was doing that in preparation for the new Avatar Aang, the Last Airbender movie, and I have some thoughts. I would say that this is an incredible movie in some aspects and incredibly disappointing in other aspects. Let's walk through it. So, in terms of the visuals, this film is best in its class. So visually stunning. This film is, in my opinion, the best film in terms of animation ever made, period. Especially in terms of 2D animation. I know this movie is a big 3D and 2D hybrid, but it's mostly 2D for like background images, foreground images, and the character animation as well. And in terms of character animation, this film, it has set the bar for 2D animation, and if you love animation, this film is a must watch. It's an incredible film visually. The subtle emotions, the eyes of the characters, the special effects. Look at this background art. Like, it looks so overgrown and beautiful. The subtle fluttering of his shawl, the bloom on the light, the streaming compression of this looks really bad. It undersells just how incredible this film looks. The film does a fantastic job of portraying kinetic energy in terms of character movement. Everything feels weighty, wind up and pay off. Straight up, yeah, this is the best animated film in terms of animation ever made, in my opinion. Now, my first sore point is the casting. I didn't know that they had recast all of the characters, aside from D. Bradley Baker, of course, because you can't have Avatar without D. Bradley Baker. He voices all of the creatures. He voices Appa, he voices Momo, a lot of background characters, but they had recast the entire main cast with celebrities, and I didn't know that coming into the movie, and I'll just let this scene play out, and you'll tell me what you think this voice is.
Water. Her tribes gather strength from the moon and flow with the tides.
Now, when I first heard that, I was like, that's an interesting narrator. Katara is played by Jessica Matten now. When I first heard Aang's voice, I thought, is that a different person? I couldn't really tell because it just sounded like an older version of what Aang would sound like. But he is now played by Eric Nam. He embodied the character so well that I was able to let it go and just let him play the role. But once I finally looked it up, I was like, oh my god, they've recast everybody. Jessica Matten, I think she does a good job in terms of portraying this kind of character, but I couldn't get past her voice. She sounds nothing like Katara, and so every time she spoke, it just pulled me right out of it. This is the voice actress for Toph now.
A kingdom of unshakable will, reliable and strong.
She's now played by Dion Kwan. I think she did a great job in this movie. She does sound like an older version of Toph. The way that she portrayed Toph felt like Toph. I thought she did a great job in this movie. And now this is what Zuko sounds like.
Fire. A nation capable of great destruction, but also of great warmth.
Zuko is now played by Steven Yeun. You may know him from Walking Dead and also from Invincible fame. He sounds nothing like Zuko's voice actor. Again, it was like Katara. Every time I heard his voice, I couldn't get it out of my head that I wasn't hearing Zuko. I was like hyper focusing on his scar so that I could trick myself into that I was watching Zuko and that I was listening to Zuko, but I couldn't get past his voice. The next voice actor that really, I should say, impressed me was Sokka's voice actor.
Enemies, then skis pop out to help you stick the landing. Pretty great, right? Why? I'll tell you why. I saved him from the iceberg. My boomerang flew by his side while he carried away enemies with my trusty blade. I even took down the whole Fire Nation airship armada.
Ramon Zaragoza did such a fantastic job as Sokka. He really fully embodies his energy and his humor that I was able to look past the recast. There are some scenes where he did such a good job that I literally thought I was hearing the original voice actor. So in terms of the cast, I say the recast, the best is probably Aang, second best Sokka, third best Toph, fourth best would be Zuko by Steven Yeun, and final best, or should I say the worst, Katara's voice actor. From what I heard, the original voice actors were reached out to by the creators before they made this decision, say that like, we want to cast actors that more in line with the culture of the characters in question. For example, you know, I don't know about Ramon Zaragoza, but Jessica Matten is a native Canadian, so she is a more similar culture, but as a result, especially after rewatching the entire original series, it completely took me out of the immersion. I think maybe if they had better material to work with, they might have done a better job embodying the characters, because as I'll discuss later, the story of this film has something to be desired. The next character that they're introducing in this movie, Targa, played by Dave Bautista. I think that Dave Bautista's performance as Targa in this film is incredible. He does such a fantastic job. The way he's able to emote, like very subtle emotions through, you know, breaths and anger, sadness. I think Dave Bautista really carried a part of this movie. He's demonstrated that he can be an excellent voice actor as well as a great on-screen actor. So in terms of the cast, hit and miss, and Dave Bautista does a fantastic job. Another massive sore spot of this film has to be the narrative. Coming into this film as a, you know, seasoned Avatar fan, grew up with the series, watched it as a kid, and then rewatched it before watching the movie, I felt that the story was very predictable. It's a very safe narrative. There's no real risks taken. It has plot holes. There are cop-out moments. There are points where characters are nerfed or they forget like abilities which could get them out of situations but choose not to in the moment. And characters that should have made themselves known before things became pear-shaped but then arrive after the fact when everything goes wrong, and as a result it hurts the narrative, especially the believability of the narrative and the competency of the characters. I would say there are a lot of points in this film where I paused it and had to rewind just to make sure I hadn't missed something, but then found out I was following the narrative properly. Let's just say that the narrative didn't feel competent enough to tell an engaging story. And I will get through all of that in the spoiler section. After my verdict, I'll get through all of that. And the other aspect is, if you are a seasoned fan, a lot of the character development that Aang goes through in this film has already been tackled in the show. Aang's grief, his survivor's guilt, his regret for leaving the air temple when they needed him most, a lot of that was already treaded in the original series. Watching this film feels like treading on familiar ground. You don't learn anything new. It feels like Aang's character development that he went through in the original show was walked back in order for the narrative of this film to exist. Of course, if you're a fan of the original show, you'll see many Easter eggs and many fan favorite characters return and stuff like that in the background that'll make you smile. Made me smile. But that's me coming at it from as a seasoned fan. When coming at this film from the perspective of, let's say, a parent trying to introduce their kid to this franchise, or someone trying to find a good introduction to the franchise without, going all the way back to the very beginning, I'd say this is a good watch. If you love animation specifically, absolutely watch this movie. It's an incredible feat in animation. If you're actually looking for a good, competent narrative set in the world of Avatar, you're not going to find it here. It's a very by the numbers, generic, predictable romp. So in terms of animation, 10 out of 10. Perfect. Best in its class. In terms of storytelling, 5, 6 out of 10 probably. Casting, good acting from everybody, especially if you're a newcomer, you'd probably appreciate the acting more than I did, but some of the casting decisions, in my opinion, left something to be desired. In terms of spoilers now, if you have any sort of narrative comprehension or expect proper, competent storytelling from your films and TV, this film is going to make you scratch your head a lot. It made me scratch my head a lot. So the narrative of this film is about Aang trying to rebuild his culture. Now that the Fire Lord has been defeated, he is on a mission to bring the Southern Air Temple back to its former glory by going across the world and restoring Airbender, Air Nomad artifacts that have been stolen, misplaced, and damaged. He is still very much in a state where he feels a lot of regret, having left the Air Temple undefended when he was a child, having ran away when he found out that he was the Avatar. He's here in the Southern Air Temple and he is being attacked by the Denied, who are a faction of non-benders that seek to level the playing field against benders. Now, the film does not explain why the Denied are so hell-bent on fighting benders. They don't go into the backstory of any of these characters. They're just so incredibly violent towards benders, especially towards the Avatar himself, even though he just saved the world from the Fire Nation. Anyways, they are after this little statue of an Air Nomad named Sonam. Well, he already has the statue and he's going to return it to the Air Temple. And apparently this Air Nomad created a staff that holds the power to grant anybody the power of airbending. The Denied are after this, even though benders historically have oppressed people, but in recent years have proven to be incredibly good and helpful. The Denied get the map. Now, Aang goes back through the Avatar state to speak to his past lives, to find out who Sonam is, and we meet this new Avatar named Avatar Shan, played by the great Kehu Kwan. Avatar Shan does not know what the staff can do. He only knows who Sonam was. He says that she was last seen at the top of a mountain, and here he describes why she was forgotten.
Maybe such a staff was too dangerous for anyone to possess, even the Avatar.
So that's why she hid it away, that's why she was forgotten, and Aang believes the Denied cannot get access to this because it is a threat to the balance of the world. Aang goes to the top of Mount Baihu, and we see this glowing sphere. Aang uses his bending to reveal what's inside, and we see a man sealed inside the ice, and Aang says Sonam, which makes no fucking sense because the only way she could be alive is if she was still the Avatar. Aang is the Avatar, so she must be dead. So Aang, knowing that the suspended animation sphere, only something the Avatar can do, because, Aang did it to himself, so clearly this person isn't Sonam, and they've clearly been sealed at the top of this mountain by Sonam. Anyways, he still makes the decision to free the person. We find out that this new person is in fact an airbender and helps Aang escape the collapsing mountain. This person would be Dave Bautista's character, Tugger. Now, the team Team Avatar bring him back to health. We find that he is incredibly wary of other benders. And if you know where I'm getting at this point, Targa is clearly a villain. Super villain coded. Everything that led up to this point shows that Sonam obviously sealed him away for a good reason. In this scene, he teaches Aang a long-lost airbending technique called the air whip, which is a way to bend the air around an object via an air tether, and each airbender can use it to slingshot themselves. He bonds with Targa through this moment. Now we see Targa and Aang talking about why Targa was sealed inside of the mountain, and this is Targa's explanation.
The Earthbenders had attacked Tirana. Sonam and I fought fearlessly, side by side. We drove them back to Mount Bayou, and that's the last I remember.
Clear and obvious bold-faced lie. It's so incredibly vague. We establish here that Earthbenders were a tyrannical army back in his day that caused lots of bloodshed. Basically the Firebenders of his time. He also asks Aang why he can stomach the presence of the Fire Lord when the Fire Nation killed Aang's people. And Aang, of course, tells him, he's my friend and he helped me defeat his father, the Fire Lord, and he's helping me usher this new world of peace. And Targa says, you remind me so much of Sonam, but he doesn't make it sound like a good thing or a bad thing. I can tell that they're trying to be subtle, but it's just so obvious. It's so incredibly obvious that Targa is obviously like a tragic villain, and of course the not the Chased, oh my god, I keep confusing with Daredevil. Of course this character here is having second thoughts about what the Denied's true intentions are. This person is the red herring villain. Targa uses his air whip ability to crush the Denied's airships. Aang uses his powers to stop him. So clearly we can see that Targa is willing to kill his enemies if it means his own survival. And Targa, using his knowledge of where the stuff is sealed, guides Team Avatar into this eternal storm, and only he knows the real path through it, and he uses Aang and him to clear the path, but as a result the Team Avatar's ship gets heavily damaged, and it requires a lot of cooperation and teamwork for Team Avatar minus Aang to make it through this sequence. Now I'll say that this is an incredible sequence. Katara is become very wary of Targa, considering that he kind of led them into a death trap, and Aang is of course blindly trusting him because he is one of his people. He's one of the last airbenders like him, and so he's really desperate to reach this staff and restore airbending to the world. They make it to the island. The island is made from the corpses of lion turtles, and within it is Sonam's staff. And so Aang goes in to collect the staff, but tells Targa to stay behind and help repair the ship with Team Avatar. Targa disobeys that order and follows him anyways, and Katara then goes to confront him, and Targa then informs us that he believes that Aang's new friends and his allegiance with the other kingdoms is weakness, and he goes to try and kill Katara. Incredibly predictable sequence of events. Like, I could see it coming a mile away, and then a fight sequence between Targa and Team Avatar ensues, and then he comes up with an airbending technique, which is basically like an air pistol that if you shoot someone in the heart with it, instantly kills them. And so here we find out that Targa had killed Team Avatar, and while Aang was finding the stuff, and he and Aang share this moment together, but as you can see, Targa, he's starting to come off as a baddie at this point, and Aang basically hands him the staff, already knowing that something is off about him, and Targa explains, I needed to kill your friends in order to free you so that you could become loyal to your people. He tries to defeat him with the Avatar state, and then pow, he kills him with the air pistol, and Aang dies. So basically Aang just handed Targa the staff to probably commit a mass genocide in the name of airbenders. Appa just kind of like betrays Team Avatar to help Targa escape the island and overthrow the world, and then Targa finds the Denied and he grants them the ability to earthbend, and they become his followers so that he can, take over the world. In the spirit world, Aang is dead, right? Sonam finally reaches out to him. We kind of see at this point, so her spirit never returned to the Avatar state. Her spirit remained here on the island, and that's how Aang finds the lost temple. Even after unlocking the staff, Sonam still should have warned Aang about Targa. There's many points in the story where Aang could have done something differently. He couldn't have handed the staff to Targa because there were so many red flags about him already. Here we learn about the Earth Kingdom's war across the world during the Golden Age of Airbenders. She grants Targa the ability to earthbend, and he uses him and his army to bring peace to the world. But of course, the earthbenders slaughter Targa's men, and he becomes radicalized. Sonam denies his request to basically slaughter the Earth Kingdom with the staff, and so he somehow steals the staff and then becomes Giga, Targa, and Sonam retrieves the staff and then uses it to seal him away, but she's on death's door, right? She's nearly dead from the fight. He was so powerful that she's clearly very on death's door, you know, like no blood, no cuts, no bruises, nothing. She's clearly on death's door.
I'm dying. Help me.
She uses her last breath to send what's left of her air nomads across the world to establish peace, and then she sends her air temple to the spirit world, which also is this island. It ends up here at the same time, and she seals the staff away, and her spirit remains on the island, but it never properly explains why her spirit doesn't return to the Avatar state, and it doesn't explain why her soul is sealed to the island. It also doesn't explain why she doesn't warn Aang before it was very important, very necessary to warn him. She just kind of dies and then doesn't do anything for the rest of the film until Aang gets fucking killed. So then she encourages Aang to retrieve the staff and blah blah blah. Aang's about to return to the Avatar state, but then bada bing, bada boom. There is spirit water here. Of course, you know, spirit water has the ability to bring people back to life, just like the spirit water from the Northern Water Temple that Katara used to bring Aang back to life at the end of Book 2. There is a massive abundance of it here. She doesn't fall into this cave water. She falls off of that cliff into the ocean. So she somehow gets washed up into this cave and gets brought back to life by some divine intervention, and then she collects the bodies of Team Avatar and brings them back to life. It's a series of very convenient events that lead up to this moment. It would feel more believable if, let's say, the ocean spirit found Katara in the ocean and then washed her body deliberately into the cave so that she would be brought back to life, and then we could see her collect the bodies and bring them back to life. But it just kind of like quickly happens off screen. It doesn't feel believable. It's, in my opinion, a bit of a cop-out. But as we see here, Aang uses his abilities to call on the ocean spirit. So the ocean spirit is in this movie and can come to this island if it wanted to. Plus the moon spirit, Yue, could have, you know, seen what was happening, asked it to save Katara. There's so many different things they could have done for, you know, it to come to this point. What they do is they use the ocean spirit to teleport themselves into the spirit realm, and they can use that as like an in-between portal to get to the final fight. And in this world, we got like, you know, Sokka becomes young Sokka, Toph becomes baby Toph, and then we get old Katara and old Zuko from Legend of Korra, and then we get young Aang and bobblehead chibi Momo. It's their way of saying that the spirit realm is out of balance as a result of what Targa is doing. He's using the staff to bring the lost air temple to Republic City, and here we get introduced to this kind of throwaway spirit character played by Taika Waititi, and he's just kind of like a bunch of comic relief. He kind of rejects them at first, but then Momo just like makes a little chirp, and then that somehow encourages him to help them at the end. So then he takes them and then he shoots them through the portal onto the temple so that they can finally fight Targa, right? They gang up on him, but he's too powerful now that he's granted airbending to the Denied. And you can see here that the Denied are incredibly powerful airbenders now. They got granted the power of airbending like minutes ago. Like, it doesn't make sense just how quickly the Denied are able to become proficient airbenders. Team Avatar fight the Denied while Aang tries to fight Tagger. He uses the Avatar state, but Tagger is still too powerful. This character keeps saying, oh, you know, the world hasn't been good to me. It's like, boo-hoo, motherfucker. Like, the Avatar literally stopped the 100-Year War. What the fuck is wrong with you? Anyways, the cute, morally grey character is starting to see the error of her ways. The fight sequences in this film are incredible. Watching these fight sequences is definitely worth watching the film alone. Then we get up to this point where everyone is cornered, basically. This part, like, pissed me off. Like, listen to this bullshit.
Oh no, I'm out of water.
Motherfucker. Like, if you know Katara, you know that she's able to pour water out of basically anything, probably even the air. As you can see, she has water, and she can use that water to do, like, basically anything. She can use it to turn into shards, she can use it to turn into a water knife, but the movie just decides to immediately evaporate her water for the sake of them, you know, being cornered by the Denied. And then it comes into this cool sequence where Sokka saves them with his soccer cycle. Then we get to the final fight between Aang and Tagger, and then Tagger uses the stuff to become Giga-Tagger, which is too powerful for the Avatar to fight even in the Avatar state. And then he's about to use his finger air gun to kill Aang, but he uses his Aang Kamehameha to teleport basically behind him. And then he finally decides to use the air whip, which he learned with Tagger. He fucking just now decides to use the air whip. So at any point before this moment, he could have used the air whip to take the staff away, but he didn't. They gave Aang severe amnesia, severe Alzheimer's in order for the rest of this movie to exist, which is really kind of dumb in a narrative sense. So then Aang uses the staff and becomes Giga Aang, and he goes to destroy Tagger. He beats the fuck out of him, and he's basically almost about to kill him, and Tagger actually really loves this. He's reveling in this. He's like, Aang is finally, you know, becoming the airbender that the air nomads need, and before Aang can perform the final strike and fully kill Tagger, he sees that air symbol and he is brought back to the time he was a child, and he sees his old master, Monkey Gyatso. He's reminded of who he is, what he's fighting for, and he makes the decision to destroy the staff. And it's a nice allegory of him letting go of the past and moving on with his life. By sacrificing the staff and sacrificing the potential of bringing airbenders to the world, he also saves the world, but also is true to who he is. And because of this, the magic that kept Tagger alive fades away, and it's kind of like a nice bittersweet goodbye between these two characters. They save Aang from the fall, and then Sonam and Aang finally commune in the spirit world, and she finally returns to the Avatar state like she should have done in the fucking very beginning. She commends Aang for making that sacrifice that she couldn't by destroying the staff. So basically, Avatar Sonam is the worst Avatar to ever exist. She's the most irresponsible and the stupidest Avatar that has ever existed. Everything that she's done in this film has basically been a massive inconvenience. She could have stopped Tagger. Let's say she couldn't possibly leave the island. Her spirit was tied to the island, and her spirit was also locked with the staff. Let's say that. When Aang released the staff, she still could have communed with him at any point outside of the Avatar state, outside of death, but she still manages to ruin everything for everybody, and at many points could have stopped this from happening. Aang also could have used the air whip to take the staff away from Tagger. He is just given artificial amnesia, so like it's clear that there was something wrong with the script. I've read up on behind the scenes of what was happening with this movie, and this movie went through a bunch of different rewrites. The animation studio at Flying Buck, by the way, an Australian studio, they were animating this film before there was a complete script. It was the introduction sequence that they were animating, and then Paramount came in at some point and then didn't like the script, and so the film had to be rewritten again. But then the writer's strike happened, and so the film's production got delayed by a year, and then the Korean animation studio came in to help. And finally, when the script was complete, the film got pushed to streaming instead of a theatrical release. And this film would have been great to see in theaters. The film got leaked online, and that killed a lot of the buzz behind it. It's very apparent that the script went through many rewrites. This film was being made in a very tumultuous time, and as a result, the script, I think, is quite poor. I think the way the characters are written in terms of their dialogue is fine, but in terms of their competency, not good at all. Characters feel very incompetent, very nerfed. Characters like Aang and Sonam at many points make really bad decisions when the clear-cut, obvious solution to their problems was right in front of them and they chose not to do them. I still recommend watching this movie because it is a fantastic animated film. The action sequences are incredible. The animation is incredible. Some of the performances are really great. I think it is a good watch. But if you're expecting a decent narrative, you're not going to get it here. From a visual standpoint, this film should be put in museums. This film, I believe, is like historical in terms of its visuals and its visual quality. In terms of narrative, it's very predictable and very forgettable. So those are my thoughts on Avatar Aang: The Last Airbender. I recommend you go watch it now on Paramount Plus or Prime Video if you can. Just don't go into it expecting an incredible narrative. If you got this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, like it. If you want to see more, I'm going to be at some point making an Avatar video game pitch video. So if that sounds like something you'd like to see, subscribe, ring the bell. Thank you so much, and see you next time.